We're streamlining operations with cutting-edge AI solutions. Madison Hartwell said it like she was announcing the cure for cancer. She stood at the front of the conference room in a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, cream-colored, perfectly tailored, with gold buttons that caught the light every time she gestured. Her tablet glowed with a presentation she clearly hadn't written herself. I could tell because the slides used technical terms she kept mispronouncing. 26 years old. Zero technical background. A degree in communications from a private college where her father sat on the board. And she'd just been named Chief Innovation Officer of Vanguard Systems, the company her father founded, the company I'd spent the last 14 years building from the inside out. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm 47 years old, and until 6 weeks ago, I was the lead systems architect at Vanguard Systems in Denver, Colorado. For 14 years, I designed, built, and maintained the proprietary database infrastructure that powered our entire client management platform, a system handling $340 million in annual transactions for 1,847 enterprise clients across North America. I wrote 67% of the original codebase myself. I trained every engineer who touched that system. I created the Vanguard Sentinel Protocol, our real-time data validation system that reduced errors by 99.3%. I built the Cascade Recovery Framework that saved us from 3 potential catastrophic failures. I designed the Meridian client interface that our biggest clients called the gold standard in enterprise software. I'd missed my daughter's high school graduation because we had a critical server migration that couldn't wait. I'd worked through my father's funeral because a Fortune 500 client was launching a new product line and couldn't afford downtime. I'd canceled my honeymoon twice because of emergency system patches. I'd sacrificed weekends, holidays, sleep, relationships, my health, all of it, because I believed in what we were building. Because I thought loyalty mattered. Because Richard Hartwell had looked me in the eye 14 years ago and said, "You're not just an employee, Elena. You're family." Family. The word tasted bitter now. Madison clicked to the next slide. A glossy graphic showed stick figures being replaced by glowing blue circuits. Legacy systems, she said, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension only someone who's never written a line of code can muster, are holding us back. They're expensive to maintain. They're slow. They're inefficient. We're moving into the future with adaptive AI that will eliminate redundant roles and optimize operational efficiency by up to 60%. Redundant roles. That's what she called us. 60%. That's how much of my team she planned to eliminate. I glanced around the room. My team sat frozen: 8 engineers, 3 data scientists, 2 QA specialists, 1 database administrator, 1 security specialist. 15 people total. People I'd hired. People I'd mentored. People who'd worked through nights and weekends alongside me. Marcus Chin, my senior engineer, who'd been with me for 9 years. Priya Sharma, who'd turned down offers from Google and Amazon to stay with us. James Rodriguez, who'd just bought his first house based on the stability of this job. People who knew, just like I did, that adaptive AI was corporate speak for, "We're about to fire you and replace you with something we don't understand." The Vanguard Adaptive Intelligence System, VAS, represents a $4.2 million investment in our future, Madison continued, reading directly from her tablet now. It will handle data processing, client communications, system maintenance, and predictive analytics. Implementation begins in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. She was giving us 3 weeks. Questions? Madison asked, but she was already closing her laptop, already gathering her things. I raised my hand. What's the AI trained on? She blinked at me like I'd asked her to solve a differential equation on the spot. It's state-of-the-art machine learning. Very sophisticated. The vendor assured us it's the best in the industry. Right, but what dataset? What's the training corpus? What data did they use to teach the AI how our systems work? That's proprietary information, she said, which is what people say when they don't know the answer. The vendor has confidentiality agreements. Did they train it on our codebase? I'd have to check with the vendor. Her smile was getting tighter. But I can assure you, Dr. Vasquez, This has all been thoroughly vetted. By who? By the vendor's technical team. Not by our technical team. We're bringing in fresh perspectives. Sometimes you need outside eyes to see inefficiencies. She looked around the room. Any other questions? No one spoke. The silence was heavy, suffocating. Great. You'll all receive individual meetings with HR over the next week to discuss your transition plans. Thank you for your time. She walked out, heels clicking on the tile floor, leaving behind the faint scent of expensive perfume and impending disaster. I didn't move. Just sat there, staring at the blank projection screen, and wrote a single word in my notebook, ours. Because I already knew. 6 months earlier, Madison's father, CEO Richard Hartwell, had called me into his office. It was a Thursday afternoon, late September, the aspens outside turning gold. He'd asked me to compile our entire codebase, documentation, and system architecture into a knowledge repository for a strategic initiative. He'd been vague about the details, but he'd emphasized how important it was. We need to protect our intellectual property, he'd said. Make sure everything's documented in case something happens. In case something happens. I'd thought he meant disaster recovery. A fire, a flood, a cyber attack. I'd spent 3 weeks compiling everything, 14 years of proprietary code, custom protocols, undocumented workarounds, system dependencies, integration maps, security frameworks. I'd packaged it all into a neat little bundle and handed it over. I'd handed them the blueprint to replace me. If my story resonates with you, if you've ever felt like your expertise was invisible until it was gone, make sure to like and subscribe. I share real stories about workplace dynamics, corporate betrayal, and what happens when companies forget that their people are their greatest asset. These stories might just change how you see your professional life. The individual meetings started the next Monday. HR called them transition conversations. I called them what they were, terminations. Marcus came to my office after his meeting. His face was pale. They're offering me 8 weeks severance. 8 weeks for 9 years. Priya was next. They asked if I'd stay on for 2 weeks to train the AI integration team. Train them to replace me. James didn't even come to my office. He just sent me a text. They're killing us. I watched my team disintegrate over the course of a week. Some people were angry. Some were in shock. Some were already updating their LinkedIn profiles, reaching out to recruiters, preparing to jump ship before they were pushed. I did none of those things. I just waited. 2 weeks after the conference room announcement, Madison called me into her office. Not the CEO's office. Her father had given her the corner suite on the executive floor, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Rockies. The one that used to belong to our CFO before he retired. The one that should have gone to someone who'd earned it. She sat behind a glass desk that had nothing on it except her phone, a single succulent in a geometric planter, and a leather portfolio embossed with her initials. The walls were decorated with motivational posters, innovate or die, disrupt the status quo, the future is now. Corporate platitudes that meant nothing. Elena, she said, not Dr. Vasquez, not even Ms. Vasquez, just Elena, like we were friends, like she hadn't just destroyed my team. I wanted to talk to you about the transition. Transition, I repeated, my voice flat. Yes. The VAS implementation is moving forward on schedule. We've finalized the vendor contracts and the integration team starts next week. But that means we need to reallocate resources. She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Your position is being eliminated. The words hung in the air. Your position is being eliminated. Not we're letting you go. Not we're downsizing. Not even you're fired. Just a passive, bureaucratic phrase that made it sound like my job had simply ceased to exist through no one's fault. I see, I said. We're offering a severance package. She slid a folder across the desk. It was thick, official-looking, with the Vanguard Systems logo embossed on the cover. For weeks for every year of service. That's, let's see, 56 weeks of pay. Very generous, actually. Most companies only offer 2 weeks per year. 56 weeks. 14 years reduced to a little over a year's salary. 14 years of nights and weekends and missed family events and sacrificed relationships, all of it worth 56 weeks of pay. And the rest of my team? I asked. Also being transitioned. We're keeping 2 junior engineers for basic maintenance, Marcus and Priya, but VAS will handle the heavy lifting. The rest will receive similar severance packages based on their tenure. Marcus and Priya. She was keeping them because they were the cheapest, not because they were the best. And she was going to work them to death trying to maintain systems they didn't fully understand. Honestly, Elena, Madison continued, leaning back in her chair, this is a good thing. You've been doing the same job for over a decade. Don't you want to try something new? Explore other opportunities? You're clearly talented. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. I looked at her, really looked at her. She believed what she was saying. She genuinely thought she was doing me a favor. In her mind, she was the hero of the story, the bold innovator dragging a stagnant company into the future. The people she was firing were just obstacles, legacy baggage holding back progress. She had no idea what she was about to destroy. When does this take effect? I asked. End of the month. That gives you 2 weeks. We'll need you to document your processes and train the AI integration team before you go. There's a transition checklist in the folder, system access, passwords, documentation locations, that sort of thing. Train the AI integration team. She wanted me to teach someone else how to replace me. She wanted me to hand over 14 years of knowledge to people who'd probably never even heard of Vanguard Systems until last month. Understood, I said. I stood up, took the folder, and walked out. No anger. No pleading. No tears. Just quiet acknowledgement. I walked back to my office, closed the door, and sat down at my desk. Then I opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a file I'd been keeping for 3 years. A file labeled Contract 2021 Renegotiation. What Madison didn't know, what her father didn't know, what nobody except my lawyer knew, was that 3 years earlier, I'd renegotiated my employment contract. Vanguard had been going through a rough patch. A major client had left, taking $40 million in annual revenue with them. The company had been hemorrhaging money, and Richard had called an all-hands meeting to announce pay freezes and budget cuts. A week later, he'd called me into his office. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. If I asked you to defer 20% of your salary for 6 months in exchange for equity, would you do it? I'd looked at him. Really looked at him. He'd looked exhausted. Scared, even. Yes, I'd said. But I want something in return. What? I want my contract updated. I want protections. He'd agreed. We'd brought in lawyers. And I'd added a clause. Clause 9F. It was buried on page 23 of a 31-page contract, written in the kind of dense legal language that makes people's eyes glaze over. Clause 9F stated that any proprietary system I designed, built, or maintained remained under my technical stewardship unless explicitly transferred in writing with my approval. It also stated that any derivative work based on my code, including but not limited to AI systems, machine learning models, or automated processes, required my written consent for commercial deployment. I'd written that clause because I'd seen this coming. Not the AI part. I couldn't have predicted that, but the part where a company decides that the person who built everything is suddenly expendable. I'd seen it happen to colleagues at other companies. I'd watched brilliant engineers get fired and replaced with cheaper alternatives, only for the company to come crawling back 6 months later when everything fell apart. I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my lawyer. Subject line, Clause 9F, enforcement required. Then I went home. The end of the month came. They threw a small goodbye party in the break room, store-bought cake from the grocery store, awkward speeches from people who didn't know what to say, a gift card to a restaurant I'd never go to. Madison didn't attend. She sent an email instead, wishing you all the best in your future endeavors. My team did attend, though. What was left of them? They looked shell-shocked. Most of them had already received their termination notices. James had already accepted a job at a startup in Boulder. 2 of my data scientists were interviewing at Microsoft. My QA specialists were both looking at remote positions. I hugged each of them. Document everything, I whispered to Marcus. Every system, every workaround, every quirk. And keep a copy for yourself. Not on company servers. Your personal drive. He nodded. He understood. I did the same with Priya. They're going to ask you to do impossible things. Don't kill yourself trying. And when it falls apart, and it will fall apart, don't let them blame you. She hugged me tighter. I'm going to miss you. I'm not going anywhere. You have my number. I walked out of Vanguard Systems at 4:47 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, March 31st. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, watching people leave for the weekend. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky orange and pink. It was beautiful. I'd forgotten to notice things like that. Then I drove home, poured myself a glass of wine, and waited. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 9 days after my official termination. I was in my home office, working on a consulting proposal for a startup in Austin that wanted to build a healthcare data platform. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Denver area code. I let it go to voicemail. 3 minutes later, it rang again. Same number. I answered. Dr. Vasquez. Elena, it's Richard Hartwell, the CEO. Madison's father. He sounded strained. Tired. We need to talk. About what? There's been an issue with the VAS deployment. Some of the legacy systems aren't integrating properly. We're seeing some unexpected behavior. We need your help troubleshooting. I took a sip of coffee. I don't work for Vanguard anymore. I know. But this is urgent. We're seeing data inconsistencies across multiple client accounts. Nothing catastrophic yet, but the integration team can't figure out what's causing it. Data inconsistencies, I repeated. What kind? Transaction records aren't matching. Some client files are showing corrupted metadata. The AI is flagging errors, but we can't trace the source. It's like the system is fighting itself. I closed my eyes. I knew exactly what was happening. The VAS system, Madison's Miracle AI, had been trained on our proprietary codebase. The codebase I'd compiled 6 months ago. But our codebase wasn't clean. It wasn't elegant. It was 14 years of patches, workarounds, and duct tape solutions that worked because I knew how they worked. There were dependencies that weren't documented. There were protocols that relied on specific timing sequences. There were fail-safes that triggered under certain conditions. The AI had learned the patterns, but it didn't understand the context. It didn't know why things were built the way they were. It just saw code and replicated it. And without the legacy maintenance protocols I'd built, the Sentinel protocol that monitored system health, the Cascade recovery framework that caught errors before they propagated, the Meridian interface that handled client-side validation. The whole thing was starting to unravel. Madison had shut down those protocols to streamline operations. She'd called them redundant. She'd said the AI would handle everything. She'd been wrong. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Have you tried reaching out to the AI vendor? They're saying it's not their problem. They're saying the issue is with our underlying infrastructure. They're saying we didn't properly prepare our systems for integration. Sounds like you need a systems architect. Elena, please. We'll pay you. Consulting rate, whatever you want. Just come in for a few hours and I'll think about it, I said, and hung up. I didn't think about it. I poured another cup of coffee and went back to my proposal. By the end of the week, the data inconsistencies had escalated. I knew because Marcus called me. He was one of the 2 junior engineers they'd kept on for maintenance, and he sounded panicked. Elena, it's bad. Really bad. The AI overwrote 3 client databases last night. We're talking complete data loss. Transaction histories, client profiles, communication logs, all gone. They're trying to restore from backups, but the backups are corrupted too. I felt my stomach drop. Corrupted how? The AI was supposed to optimize storage by compressing old records, but it didn't recognize the legacy encoding format you built. It just deleted chunks of data it thought were redundant. And it did it to the backups too, because they're stored in the same format. Which clients? Hartman Financial, Apex Logistics, and Crescent Health Systems. 3 of our biggest accounts. Hartman Financial alone was worth $23 million annually. Apex Logistics was $15 million. Crescent Health Systems was $9 million. Combined annual value, $47 million. What's Madison saying? Marcus laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was the laugh of someone who'd stopped sleeping. She's blaming us. Says we didn't maintain the systems properly. Says we should have updated the encoding format years ago. She's in full panic mode, sending emails at 2 a.m., demanding we fix it immediately. She doesn't understand that we can't fix it. The data's gone. What about the offsite backups? There was a pause. What offsite backups? The ones I set up in 2019. Separate server, separate location, separate encoding system. They're not connected to the main network. Elena, I don't know anything about offsite backups. They're not in any of the documentation. They wouldn't be. I kept them separate for exactly this reason. In case someone did something catastrophically stupid to the main systems. Can you access them? Yes, but I'm not going to. Not yet. Elena. Marcus, listen to me. This is going to get worse before it gets better. A lot worse. Don't let them make you the scapegoat. Document everything. Every decision Madison made, every warning you gave, every request for help that got ignored. Protect yourself. I'm trying. But Elena, people are scared. Clients are calling. The legal team is involved. There's talk of lawsuits. There should be. What Madison did was reckless. She's asking about you. Wants to know if you'd come back. What did you tell her? I told her you're probably busy. I smiled despite myself. Thanks, Marcus. Hang in there. How long are you going to wait? Until they're ready to listen. Before I tell you what happened next, you might be wondering how a company can be so reckless with something as critical as client data. That's exactly what I'll be covering in next week's video, so make sure you're subscribed. The second call from Richard came 5 days later. By then, the situation had gone from bad to catastrophic. I knew because it had made the news. Not national news, but local business news. Denver tech company faces data crisis after AI implementation. The article was vague on details, but it mentioned significant client data loss and potential regulatory violations. My phone rang at 7:30 a.m. I was making breakfast. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Dr. Vasquez, Richard said, and I noticed he was using my title now. We need to discuss terms. Terms for what? For you to return. As a consultant. We're prepared to offer you $500 per hour, plus full access to your old systems, plus coverage for any legal liability. $500 an hour. That was more than double my old salary, calculated hourly. For a consulting gig, it was good. For what they were asking me to do, it was insulting. I appreciate the offer, I said, but I'm not interested. Elena, Dr. Vasquez, please. We're facing regulatory audits. The Colorado Data Protection Authority is investigating. The Federal Trade Commission has opened an inquiry. If we can't prove we've secured client data and prevented further breaches, we're looking at fines in the millions. Tens of millions. And our clients are threatening to sue. We've already lost 2 major accounts. Hartman Financial is talking about a $50 million lawsuit. That sounds serious. It is serious. We need you. The company needs you. I let the silence stretch. Let him sit with it. Let him understand what it felt like to need something desperately and not be able to get it. You fired me, Richard, I said finally. You let your daughter eliminate my entire team because she thought an AI could do our jobs. You let her shut down systems I'd spent years building because she thought they were redundant. You let her make decisions about technology she didn't understand. And now you want me to come back and fix the mess she made. I know it looks bad. But it doesn't just look bad. It is bad. You treated me like I was disposable. You treated my team like we were redundant. Like we were the problem instead of the solution. And now you're calling me because you finally realized we weren't. You're right, he said quietly. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have pushed back on Madison. I should have protected you and your team. But right now, I need to save this company. Name your price. I thought about it. I thought about my team, scattered to the wind, scrambling for new jobs, wondering if they'd ever feel secure again. I thought about the clients whose data had been lost, whose businesses were being disrupted. I thought about Madison, sitting in her corner office, probably drafting a press release about how this was all a learning experience and an opportunity for growth. "I'll come back," I said, "but not as a consultant." "What do you mean?" "I want my old position back. Lead systems architect. Full salary, plus a 40% raise. I want my team rehired, all of them, at double their previous salaries. I want Madison removed from any technical oversight role. And I want Clause 9F enforced." Clause 9F. Check my contract. The one I signed 3 years ago. You'll find it on page 23. There was a long pause. I could hear him typing, could hear papers rustling. Then I heard him inhale sharply. "This says, you retain stewardship of any proprietary systems you built. And that derivative works require your written consent." "That's correct." "The AI was trained on your code." "Yes, it was." "So you're saying we can't use VAS without your permission?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. And right now, I'm not giving permission. In fact, I'm formally revoking any implied consent. As of this moment, any use of VAS constitutes a violation of my intellectual property rights." Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost hear his mind racing, calculating the implications. "What do you want, Elena?" "I just told you. My position. My team. My terms. And one more thing." "What?" "Madison writes a formal apology to every person she fired. Not a corporate email. Not a form letter. A personal, handwritten letter acknowledging that she made a mistake and that she's sorry. She'll never agree to that." "Then I guess you'll have to convince her. Because without me, your company is dead in the water. The AI doesn't work. Your systems are failing. Your clients are leaving. And you're about to face regulatory fines that could bankrupt you. So you can either meet my terms or you can watch everything you built collapse." I hung up. 3 days later, I received an email from Vanguard's legal department. It was a formal offer letter. Lead systems architect. $210,000 annual salary, a 40% increase from my previous $150,000. Full benefits. Stock options worth $75,000 vested over 4 years. And attached to it was a spreadsheet, my entire team, with new salary figures next to each one. Marcus Chin, $180,000, previously $90,000. Priya Sharma, $200,000, previously $100,000. James Rodriguez, $160,000, previously $80,000. Every single person was getting at least double what they'd made before. Some were getting more. There was also a PDF. I opened it. It was a scanned image of a handwritten letter on Vanguard Systems letterhead. "Dear Dr. Vasquez, I made a serious error in judgment when I terminated your position and eliminated your team. I failed to understand the complexity and importance of the work you performed. I failed to recognize that technology is built by people, not replaced by it. I failed to listen to expertise because I thought innovation meant disruption. I was wrong, and my mistakes have caused significant harm to this company and to you personally. I am deeply sorry. I hope you will accept my apology and return to help us rebuild what I broke. Sincerely, Madison Hartwell." It wasn't eloquent. It wasn't particularly heartfelt. But it was there in her handwriting, and I knew it had cost her something to write it. I knew her father had probably forced her to write it. But she'd done it. I called Richard. "I accept. But I want one more thing." He sighed. "What?" "I want the VAS contract terminated. Completely. I want the vendor's access revoked. I want every trace of that system removed from our infrastructure. And I want a public statement that we're returning to human-led operations. Done. Anything else?" "No. That's it." "When can you start?" "Monday." I returned to Vanguard on a Monday morning, April 24th. The office felt different, quieter, more tense. People looked at me like I was a ghost. Or maybe a savior. I wasn't sure which. Madison was waiting in the conference room. The same conference room where she'd announced the AI initiative 6 weeks earlier. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No expensive blazer this time, just a plain blouse and slacks. Her father sat next to her, his expression unreadable. Dr. Vasquez, Richard said, standing to shake my hand. Thank you for coming back. I nodded, turned to Madison. I got your letter. She met my eyes. I meant it. I didn't understand what you did. I thought technology could just replace people. I thought innovation meant getting rid of the old and bringing in the new. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Yes, I said. You were. She flinched, but she didn't look away. Here's how this is going to work, I continued. I'm going to rebuild the systems your AI destroyed. I'm going to bring back my team, and we're going to fix this mess. You're going to stay out of our way. No more innovation initiatives. No more cost-cutting schemes disguised as progress. If you want to learn how this company actually works, you can shadow me. But you don't make decisions about technology anymore. Understood. She nodded. Good. Now, where's the damage report? It took 6 weeks to stabilize the systems. 6 weeks of 16-hour days, emergency client calls, and painstaking data recovery. My team came back one by one. Marcus first, then Priya, then James. The others followed. Some were hesitant. Some were angry. But they came back. We managed to restore 94% of the lost data from the off-site backups I'd hidden in a server farm in Wyoming. Backups Madison hadn't known existed because she'd never bothered to ask. The remaining 6% we reconstructed manually from client records, email archives, and transaction logs. The regulatory fines still came. $3.2 million from the Colorado Data Protection Authority for failure to maintain adequate data security protocols. Another $1.8 million in settlements with clients. Vanguard stock dropped 11% when the news went public. The company's valuation fell by $67 million. But we survived. Madison, to her credit, did shadow me. She sat in on meetings, asked questions, took notes. She stopped using words like synergy and optimization and started using words like maintenance and documentation. She learned what a database schema was. She learned why backups mattered. She learned that legacy systems weren't obstacles, they were foundations. She wasn't good at it, not yet, but she was trying. 3 months after I returned, Richard called me into his office. The CEO's office, not Madison's. I wanted to thank you, he said. You saved this company. I saved my work, I corrected. There's a difference. He smiled. Fair enough. I also wanted to tell you something. Madison's stepping down as Chief Innovation Officer. She's moving to a junior product role. She'll report to you. I raised an eyebrow. She agreed to that? She suggested it. Said she needed to learn from the ground up. Said she couldn't lead something she didn't understand. I didn't know what to say. She's learning, Richard continued. Slowly. But she's learning. And that's because of you. I didn't do it for her. I know. But it matters anyway. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office, my old office, the one they'd given to Madison and then given back to me, when there was a knock on the door. Come in. Madison stepped inside. She looked different. Less polished. More real. She was wearing jeans and a Vanguard Systems hoodie, and her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was carrying a laptop covered in stickers, Python logos, XKCD comics, a hello world in 10 different languages. Hey, she said. Do you have a minute? Sure. She sat down across from me. I wanted to show you something. She pulled out her laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a system architecture diagram. It was rough, hand-drawn in a digital tool, but it was not bad. I've been working on a proposal, she said, for a client onboarding workflow. Something to streamline the initial setup process without compromising data integrity. I wanted to get your feedback before I present it to the team. I looked at the diagram. Really looked at it. She'd used the right protocols. She'd accounted for data validation. She'd even included rollback procedures in case something went wrong. This is good, I said. She smiled. A real smile this time. Really? Really. You're learning. I have a good teacher. She paused. I also wanted to say, I know I can't undo what I did. I know I hurt people. I know I almost destroyed this company. But I'm trying to be better. To do better. I know. Thank you. For giving me a chance. for not giving up on me. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for the company, for my team, for the work. I know, but still, thank you. She stood up, closed her laptop, and headed for the door. Then she stopped and turned back. Elena, yes, that clause you put in your contract. The one that gave you control over your systems. That was brilliant. It was necessary. Will you teach me how to do that? How to protect my work? I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was serious. Yes, I said. I will. She nodded and left. I sat there for a moment, staring at the door. Then I turned back to my computer and got back to work. 3 years later, I'm still at Vanguard Systems. I'm now VP of Engineering, overseeing a team of 34 people. My original team, the one Madison fired, they're all still here. Marcus is a senior architect leading our infrastructure division. Priya is heading up our new AI ethics initiative. Yes, we're using AI now, but we're doing it right. James is our lead security engineer. We're building systems the right way now. Slowly, carefully, with respect for the people who built what came before. Madison's still here too. She's a product manager now, and she's actually good at it. She understands that technology isn't magic. It's work. It's people. It's years of knowledge and experience and mistakes and learning. She still makes errors. We all do. But she listens now. She asks questions. She respects expertise. As for the AI that nearly destroyed everything, we shut it down. Completely. Turned out that cutting-edge adaptive intelligence was just a repackaged machine learning model that had been trained on stolen code, our code, without proper licensing or attribution. The vendor had scraped our repository during a security audit they'd conducted 6 months before Madison hired them. They'd sold us a solution built on our own stolen intellectual property. The vendor settled out of court for $6.7 million. We used that money to fund a new R&D division focused on ethical AI development. Madison runs it. She's good at it. Richard Hartwell retired last year. He handed the CEO position to someone outside the family. Someone with 25 years of industry experience. Someone who understands that you can't automate away expertise. I think about that day in Madison's office sometimes. The day she told me I was redundant. The day she thought she could replace 14 years of knowledge with an algorithm. The day she learned that people aren't interchangeable parts. She was wrong. But she learned. And maybe that's the real story here. Not that I won. Not that I got revenge. But that someone who made a catastrophic mistake was willing to admit it, learn from it, and become better. That's rarer than you'd think. If you've ever felt like your expertise was invisible, like you were just a cog in a machine that could be swapped out at any moment, I hope my story gives you something. Maybe it's validation. Maybe it's courage. Maybe it's just the knowledge that you're not alone. And if you found something valuable in this story, please like and subscribe for more real stories about workplace dynamics, corporate power plays, and what happens when companies forget that their people are their greatest asset. I post new stories every week about the reality of corporate life, the good, the bad, and the lessons we learn along the way. Remember, your value isn't determined by whether someone recognizes it. It's determined by what happens when you're gone. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's proving that you were right all along. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.